Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today we're going to do a search for the unexpected. Now that could be new growths on plants that haven't done anything for ages, spikes, that sort of thing. And the first unexpected thing is my new fogger arrived a day early. So yay, we now have two foggers, which while I'm away tomorrow, if we do get any sunshine tomorrow, that will help because I won't be here to throw water all over the floor. So I'm going to start watering the non-holy clay pots. I think that came out right today. I'm leaving the mounts until last thing today because I won't be able to do them tomorrow, so I'm going to do them late today. They had a hell of a good soak yesterday, sort of midday, so that'll tide them over for today's a dull day, and it was a dull day yesterday. It was raining just now. So let's get going, see what we find. And we have a surprise on the first one I picked up. This is a little Psychopsis cross called Butterfly. It's Papilio crossed with Sandrae. And firstly, it's starting to produce some roots. It had some roots, but it's producing new roots from several places. That's probably a bit close, so new root system. And down at the bottom there is a new growth. So we have progress on that little one. That leaf was, I thought it was damaged in transport, but apparently that's what that leaf has always looked like. But if you're watching, you notice it's actually plumped up a bit and it's losing its crease at the base because it was flopped over. So it's hydrating a bit better, and a new growth. That's good. It won't be a spike, it'll be a new growth. This is a relatively young plant. I know what Papilio looks like and the size it grows to, and this is nowhere near that size. But what I don't know is what Sandrae looks like, and if that is a miniature Psychopsis, then this may be its size. But with a new growth and a new root system pushing out, this new growth should grow up to what should be somewhere near its full size. Probably not its actual full size, but certainly getting closer. And I'm looking forward to this one picking up because it's one of the Psychopsis with the lovely patterning on the leaves. Yeah, so we'll see how that one grows. My other two are doing lousy, so hopefully this one will pull on. And again, another new growth on an unexpected plant. I do know what this is, but I don't know what it is now while I'm filming because it hasn't got a label. But it's one of the ones that came out of the big box, and it is identified. I do know what it is. If I can be bothered, I'll do pop-ups on this video because you're not going to get one tomorrow. So I'll try and put a bit of time in on this one. But yeah, we have a nice little new growth coming on that. So hopefully that will push on now. Surprises like this I can do without. I just spotted some scale on my Neophonetia. That was sprayed a while ago. I won't say how long because I've forgotten, but it was actually sprayed because I did see some signs of scale near the bases of the pseudobulbs, and the ones I've just spotted on a leaf just wiped off with my finger without any effort at all, so they were dead. But no, I don't think I'll spray that again. I don't like over spraying. I don't like spraying when I'm spraying nothing, if you know what I mean. I like to wait till I can physically see something that's living and then whack it. But that's finished blooming now. It hadn't bloomed for a very long time, so to see a spike on it was great. I'd forgotten what the blooms and the fragrance on that is stunning, but you have to come out after dark. But yeah, I mean the plant's coming on okay. But we can do without scale on anything. Certainly if it's going to... I'm expecting to find some today because I haven't handled my pots for some time. In fact, I haven't handled them properly since my daughter helped me water them when my back was really bad. My back isn't better, but it's an awful lot better and plenty good enough to enable me to have a go at the pots today. But it is the first time in a while. It's good from my point of view to show examples of when new root systems come. Now this is my little Dendrobium rhodostictum. It's still a relatively young plant, but it has actually bloomed on the previous two growths. This is the latest new growth, and for the first time 3 leaves instead of 2, so that's progress, but it's only just starting to produce the new root system. So if I'd decided to repot that as the new growth started, it just would have been wrong. I'd have disturbed the older roots, some of which would have then probably failed, and I'd have had a long wait for those new roots. So it still pays to use your eyes. And, you know, I mean, now, if it needed it, it doesn't, but if it needed it, now would be a great time to repot it. And those new roots would get straight down into the new media, and the plant wouldn't get set back, it would take off like a little rocket. But that hasn't long been repotted, so I don't need to. But yeah, nice new growth. This one will bloom down the line a bit, and the blooms will then last for 3 months, like they always have done. And again, as an example, this is another Latoria type. This came out of the big box as well, I think. Nora Tokunaga crossed with Aberan, so blooms on that should be good. Mostly white, I suspect. But again, the new growth is quite mature. New roots are only just starting. Yeah? But they're starting earlier on this growth than they did on the last one we looked at, because this growth isn't mature yet. It's part way there. You can see obviously there's a huge swelling to develop at the top yet, and the leaves have only just started to open. So this one produces its roots a bit earlier. These notes I keep, yeah, they're for reference for you know, when I know the media's starting to get a bit old and tired. They're my reference point to know when to repot. Because sometimes I can go ahead and repot knowing those roots are about to come out, but I wouldn't know that without notes. I can't have that sort of memory to remember each individual plant, so I keep notes on that. I think it's quite important. Now, this is another one out of the big box that's growing on really well, and that is unexpected, so a bit of a surprise for me, but it is producing quite a lot of new growths down at the base, even though one of them's trying to masquerade as a growth when in fact it's a kiki. These do produce kikis. Dendrobium stardust firebird is notorious for it, but it's now whacking out the new roots all over the place. Now that's in reasonable media as far as its age and everything like that is concerned, and its quality, but for a plant that's doing this sort of growth with roots that sort of size, that media is a bit big and there's an awful lot of gaps in places. So that one needs potting up in a shallower pot, probably a little wider, with the next size down. And that's the same plant there that's also pushing out new growth, but no new roots at the moment. They're all going in the same pot basically, because they're one and the same. So I'll end up with one pot full with some growth from the base, which is a novelty. What you doing then? Where you been? You don't like the fans, do you? Well, that should keep you out the way then, otherwise you get under my feet. Now this one's up to stuff. This was tossed in with the Meike as a gift. Although I still say it's not really a gift, because I'm still supposed to send some plants back. But it's up to things. This new growth is pushing out new roots, and at the base of this growth is something, including some roots, but there is a look at it sideways on. So that could be another new growth. In theory, it could be a spike. That's definitely a wait and see. That's Bulbophyllum Tingabarinum, in fact, only one eye at the end there. But yeah, I mean, this is growing roots, so it's taken, okay, and maybe a spike, probably a new growth. We'll have to wait and see, but at least it has a new growth that's maturing, nice leaf and some new roots pushing down. So good stuff. That's on its way. Moving on. Now, what are you up to? This is Dendrobium Comet King. This was a gift from Rachel, if my memory serves me right. Just a kiki, which then produced a new growth, which did actually have a bloom earlier in the year. But what are you up to now? What are you going to be? Are you going to be a bloom, or are you going to be a kiki? Far too early to tell yet, but yeah, I mean, I can't remember seeing that last time I picked this up to look at it. What I want from this is a new growth from the base. That's what I'm looking forward to. Otherwise it's stuck with the only growth with leaves on that has already produced a bloom, which is a bit young to do that, but yeah, I mean, I'm looking for some new growth at the base of that plant. Hopefully sometime during this season it will kick out one, and then we'll see where we go from there. Now this is a fun one. It's another Latoria type. It's macrophyllum, and it's the variety Turnetense. It's taking off like it's going out of fashion. We've got a new growth here. Go around the other side. Got another one here, and another one here, and another one here. So currently four. There's one tucked round that. So 5 new growths on the go on that plant. I think from memory when I potted it, it's actually 2 plants in there. But nonetheless, new growths on both. Now this has got a nickname, the large-leafed dendrobium. Well, not yet. Nonetheless, the blooms on this are, I don't know what the variation is going to do to the blooms, but the normal species blooms on this are quite stunning. They may be a way off yet, I don't know. But if this is nicknamed the large-leaf dendrobium, probably for the Latoria types, well, it isn't there yet then. But let's see what those new growths do. There's new roots coming out in places as well. So that one's taken nicely, having been potted up out of the big box. This is another one out of the big box. This is a Zygonicea. That's a long name. Murasaki Kamado Dark Blue, French blue. But it's just starting to push out a root system. I don't know what roots it had. It hasn't been repotted from when I got it, but we do have good roots pushing out now, and it has got a new growth coming. So progress on that one. It's alive, it's growing, and it should now push on with a root system building up like that. So that's probably quite a young plant. Now, although that's a zygopetalum, which tend to be pretty large, strappy plants, I don't know what's mixed in with it. And if what's mixed in with it is a very small growing plant, the result should be more of a medium size. But I don't think that's anywhere near flowering size yet, so that's one to grow on. Now, several surprises on this zygopetalum. Firstly, it's still alive. I think I've got over my spate of killing the blighters. I do have a pot full of roots now, and quite good active root systems on the new growths. The surprise on this one, most zygos produce their spikes well before the bulbs mature. Now that bulb is obviously not swollen up anywhere near as big as it can be. It's got some lovely leaves on it, but no sign of a spike. And if we look at this one over here, this one is starting to swell up and create its bulb now, but I still don't see a spike anywhere, although there is a bit of a bulge there. Who knows? But still alive. And another surprise, apparently, I mean, I've never kept a zygopetalum long enough to ever find out, but these things do not like water on their leaves. They spot. Yeah, well, no they don't. So in theory there's another reason if you're getting spots all over your leaves, because these live down here and I've been using the sprayer. So they've been getting dripped on, not only with clean water but with water with feed in. These are old leaves. These are my leaves. There's no spots. These new leaves are good. And there's not even spotting on the older leaves apart from this sort of thing that was already there. So I think it's going to be to do with the air movement. It's got to be. The fact that these are quite close to this fan. You know, they're in a direct blast from that fan. So even if they get dripped on, those drips really do not stay there long. So perhaps it's more to do with how long the water stays there. Or if it's staying there long enough to start getting bacteria breeding in the little spots of water and the temperatures are lower, then it could be that. But at the moment, I don't have spots. I also don't have spikes. Maybe one day. Is this one? Oh, this is the Louisendorf, Zygopetalum Louisendorf. And if it does bloom, they are quite spectacular. But and I'm not sure what it's going to do. It was in bloom when I got it, so I don't know whether this particular hybrid produces its spikes later on the bulbs than some do. We'll have to wait and see. The next zygopetalum I'm going to pick up has got a hell of a surprise on it. Can you see it yet? Bearing in mind the one I've just filmed sits in front of this one, so this one's right at the back, I'll get it out. That was hiding round the back of the plant, virtually obscured by not only the leaves on this plant, but on the other plant that was stood in front of it. I think we might shuffle the plants round. These are gorgeous, and they're fragrant too. They've only just opened, because I was aware of the spike. See, now this is being more like a typical zygo. I mean, this is a very immature bulb, and the spike has not only been produced, but opened already on such a small bulb. The strange thing with this one is that the other new growth that it pushed up a little earlier is far bigger and more mature, but no spike on that one. Some new roots coming out the bottom that are good. But yeah, so Zygopetalum blooms back in the grow room. They haven't been around for a while, and I know the fragrance is brilliant on that, but it needs to come out now because they live down here where they don't get the brightest light by any means. They get some nice backlight in through that glass that doesn't get the sun on it, but it's still quite bright light. They are close to the glass. But this one can come up now, can come up somewhere where it does get a brighter light for the time being, because that will influence the fragrance and start kicking it out. So I'll shuffle a few things round and get that somewhere where we can see it, because it's well worth looking at. Gorgeous colours. And opening facing me. Because some zygopetalums have a habit of actually opening skywards, so you have to sort of get up above them to view them. But these are facing outwards nicely. Trouble is, if you look at them head on, you're looking at an end-on view of the lip. The lip is virtually horizontal, whereas the bloom is vertical. So they're not typical orchid shapes. I suspect there's something to do with pollinators landing on that lip and it swings down, but I don't want to push me luck and break it off, so I'm not going to do it. But yeah, that's just a hybrid, no ID, this one. I can quite safely say that this bulbophyllum is the only one that I would class as growing well for me. It's also my favourite. I just love the leaves on this and the fact that it's compact. It's lovely, lovely short rhizomes, so all the bulbs are nicely clustered together, and this thing is going mad. This was a relatively new growth, I presume, and it pushed out a new growth either side, both of which are now producing a new growth. Well, they might be spikes, but probably new growths. And then round the other side we've got new growth coming up here. It needs to get that side of that leaf so it doesn't grow under the leaf and bend, and a nice strong one pushing up here. So, you know, effectively we've got two recently matured growths that in theory should be blooming size if it chooses to do so, with a new growth coming out of each one, and again round here a recently matured bulb with two new growths on. So this is growing well, but it's still yet to bloom for me. Wilbur Chang, that is. Is it Chang or Chan? Chang. Bulbophyllum Wilbur Chang. It's a lovely plant. I really like this plant a lot. If I wasn't so lazy and cleaned the leaves up, they're a lovely glossy green. But anyway, growing well, that one. It's my only bulbophyllum that's doing that, I must admit. Now this straggly looking thing is my Dendrobium farmeri crossed with Griffithianum, not to be confused with my other one, which is Griffithianum crossed with farmeri. This one has white blooms with gold in the lip, the other one has pink blooms with yellow in the lip. It does make a difference, the cross being the other way round. Now I've got to wait years before these pock-marked leaves disappear. This is bug damage with a secondary infection. The infection's long since stopped. You know, it's not getting any worse, but the leaves aren't going to get better, are they? Where's the last new growths? The last new growth was this one over here and the one below it down there. So not so bad. And last time I picked this up and filmed it, probably when I did the updates, I was cursing it because it hadn't grown any new growths for some time or any new roots. Well, it must have been listening, because it's now doing both. We do have new roots coming out in many places, including at the bottom of the pot that are good. until I want to get it out of the pot. But we got a lovely strong new growth pushing up here and another one pushing up here, so I've got two new growths. This is still capable of pushing out blooms on the older canes. You can see they are capable of multiple nodes. I've only ever seen two, I think, maybe three on a cane, but at least two anyway. So the latest two new growths over this side haven't actually bloomed yet. So this one, you can see the two nodes there. They look a strange colour and they may have aborted. And that one hasn't even got any nodes yet. But two nice new growths on that certainly weren't there last time I looked. So it must have been listening. New roots coming out around the base where those new growths are, and branching going on in the pot. So yeah, it's growing okay despite looking a bit tatty. Now, although this is watering out of sequence, I thought it was worth showing the other one. Now, although this one's actually got a name, a hybrid name, registered, it's nonetheless Griffithianum crossed with Farmeri. And this is the one that has the pink blooms on. Not long ago it was in bloom. Again, a nice new growth, single new growth on this one at the moment with associated roots, and there are nubbins on this on canes that have yet to bloom. So this has got plenty of places left where it can still decide to push out a spike any time with these things, literally any time when it feels like it. I've never got my head round what pushes those nubbins. They sit there for ages and then suddenly they'll push, and when they grow very, very fast. But there's no sign of any movement on any of those nubbins at the moment, but then it has just finished blooming. But nice new growth, that's good. Consequences, I knew I'd find some. Look at the state of that old bulb. Absolutely smothered. But the good news is they're not on the new growth or the previous one. They're on one manky old bulb, which in theory I could put a knife down in there and cut that one off. In fact, I might do that. Just take them out, because that bulb's serving no purpose now. I mean, the life of this plant is basically in this growth here with the leaves and the new roots branching, suddenly coming back into life, and its latest new growth. That's the life of that plant. Anything behind that just really is serving no purpose now. I mean, that bulb is totally shriveled. That one's still relatively plump, but still quite badly desiccated, and that little bulb down there with all the scale on is of no use whatsoever, so it's coming off. More consequences, only this time it's mealybugs. But when they get into an area like that, they do permanent damage to the young growth that will then grow on with marks on the leaves. So I shall deal with that one. At least with mealybugs, they're easy to kill. They do go down with almost anything. You can even blast them off with water if you want, but I like to get into the plant so that any eggs or anything that hatch out later when I'm not looking, which can happen, get dealt with. So we shall deal with that one now. Well, the surprise on this one is that it didn't bloom on the previous set of growths that matured. There was only a couple, but it didn't have a very good root system. Well, it's certainly made up for that now. It's done the roots, and now it's doing new growths in quite a few places. So hopefully when those mature, there's quite a lot of them, when those mature perhaps I'll get some blooms. As I say, that's a Miltonia species, flavescens. That would be good. I haven't seen the blooms on that yet, but plenty of new growths from which blooms may come. Down the line a bit though, they're only just starting. So, coming on. I'm filming this one because I'm reasonably sure this one came from Isabel, and she asked if I still had it because it hadn't been on film for a while. It's Bialara Joe's Drum, and if I can get it to bloom, they are incredibly attractive. This had weak roots and two new growths that were half grown, I would say. Well, they have now produced bulbs, so that the two new growths have matured, and they're only just showing signs of roots coming out. But they have produced their bulbs now, and there are some roots coming, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it, but where the hell's it gone? Down in here somewhere. We do have another new growth, so hopefully it's going to pull on now. But those two growths did actually mature. You know, their leaves opened, a little bit concertinaed in places, that's lack of hydration, and they have matured and produced bulbs. So it has progressed. It is very slow progress on this one, but hopefully now, unfortunately some of the roots came up through sheaths and pushed upwards instead of getting straight down in the media, but they're heading down in there now. It's a very fine root system. So if it can get some roots going now, it is showing some good signs of new roots coming out. If they can get down in the media, that will get going again, and hopefully the latest new growth, the tiny little one, will pull it on as a plant. I mean, it's not a failing plant by any means, it's just growing very, very slowly, and, which given its type it shouldn't be. So hopefully it will pull on. Couple of surprises on this one. I knew this had a spike starting, but what I hadn't realised is how fast it's grown, and it had grown up through the mesh of the shelf above. That's incredibly lucky that didn't get squashed putting the pots back. Now this came from the same place as all of my infected cattleyas. Yeah, so it's highly likely that this had the dreaded F. It pushed up two new growths in different places. So that bulb there has been grown since the treatment and doesn't look too bad. However, the new growth coming off of it doesn't look so good. So maybe that left-hand part of the plant is still a bit bunged up and is not hydrating and getting nutrients through. However, it did the same over here with that bulb, not too bad, but then this one grew. So I can quite safely say that part of the plant is now clear. That bulb has grown on, it's pushed out roots, and it's now got a spike. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen the blooms on that for an incredibly long time. It's been struggling to even live, let alone produce a spike, but the bulb's plenty big enough. It's got a root system under it. It can support that spike. That's why I'm letting it go. If there was any doubt, I'd take the spike off, but we'll have blooms on that soon. And I'll have to find somewhere else to put that now where that spike can stand up. I think I might even stake that one. No, let's let it arch. Okay, I'm going to stop filming and draw this one to a close now. I haven't actually finished watering my pots, but if I don't crack on with them now, I'm not going to get them finished. So I've always said the filming slows me down a bit, so I'll cut this one off there. I'll remember where I got to with this sort of surprises type of video, and next time I water the pots, which will be during next week sometime, I'll carry on where I finished off today, and then we'll have a look at the rest of the ones that didn't get picked up today, basically, and we'll carry on from there. So hope you've enjoyed this. As I say, you know, surprises happen when you don't pick your plants up for a while. Not all of them, you know, but an odd one or two we found with a few things going on that were a bit unexpected and not there last time I looked, all that sort of thing. And we'll have another go at it next time I get round to looking at the pots. See you next time. Oh, another reminder, just a quickie, don't forget any YouTubers who want to meet up tomorrow at Malvern, 1 o'clock by the Bournemouth Orchid Society stand. I would imagine any that are around will have bumped into each other several times by then, but not necessarily all at once. So, as I say, it's just an idea, don't feel obliged or anything, but if you're there, Bournemouth Orchid Society stand at 1 o'clock, and we can all say hello to each other. Try and remember what everybody's name is. That'll be fun. See you next time.